Hello, everybody. Welcome into the NBA Front Office YouTube channel. Lots going on in the world of professional basketball. Of course, we've got the NBA Finals, but also teams are making their preparations, getting ready for what promises to be a very busy offseason. We are projecting a lot of trades. We're going to talk a little bit about some teams potentially swapping some draft picks. Are some picks going out for some players? We'll dive into that as well as a few other little odds and ends. But first, make sure you do subscribe right here to the NBA Front Office YouTube channel. Things are really going to start picking up around the NBA here as the offseason draws near. So make sure that you are in the know. Get notified every time we have a new video by ringing that notification bell. Keith, how are you doing, man? And look, this is going to be an exciting NBA draft / free agency period. We've been saying it for a while. It's going to be the summer of the trade.
Yeah, I really think it is. It just sets up that way. It's not a great free agent class. There's not a ton of teams with cap space, but there are a lot of teams that feel like they can go for it. So if you're in that position, the way to make that happen is make trades and try to make your run that way. So think that may start with the draft. I think whenever you have a draft class where you have multiple teams with additional first round picks, that gives them the potential to move up and down the board. And you've got some teams with good additional first round picks too, which is big, right? It's weird. Like the Houston Rockets have those couple extra picks, but they're so late in the draft that those ones probably don't have a ton of value. It's not like you're going to add those two together and get up to one with the second pick. But if you're the Orlando Magic with 5 and 8, that could be interesting. OKC has 6, 16, and 18, I believe, or something in that range. So they're in kind of a fun spot. Yeah, so see, I've been studying, man. I'm on it. I'm trying to learn this stuff.
I went on a deep dive today of draft stuff. I'm right there with you. Like I'm locking in on the draft so we can be. It is that time. And then of course you've got the Warriors, right? I mean, the Warriors are maybe the most likely to make.
They were the next one. Yep. Yeah, and then because they're not really looking to add more young guys to their team. So I think we've got a lot of potential for movement there. And before we get into the meat of today's topic, we know a lot of people have been commenting. Guys, we read the comments, so be nice because we do read them. But a lot of people asking us to do a mock draft. We'll do something.
Yes.
Mock draft-ish. We spend so much time focused on the NBA, both of us, that neither one of us is big draft guys until around this time of year. So I think we're both pretty comfortable with the guys in the top 10, maybe even of the lottery. But it sounds like people want a full first-round mock draft. Maybe that's driven by a couple of the bigger teams. Picks are later in the first round potentially. But we'll give you something. So we're just going to spend a little bit of time getting a little bit more prepared, get through a few more workouts so we have a better sense. Because we want to give you a mix of what we think plus what's realistic, where we're not just going to kind of go out there and do a fantasy draft style, because that's probably not a whole ton of value in that. So something will be coming, we promise. We're just not quite ready yet.
And maybe even that's an opportunity where we will bring in a draft expert as well. We can do our own mock, and we can bring somebody in as well that can give us a little bit more insight. So don't worry, that stuff is in the works. It is coming. But Heath, I know you had a few like international guys that were leaving before we get into some of the trade stuff, like Matthew Dellavedova. Saying good day to Australia. What are your thoughts on all these moves that are taking place here?
Yeah, so kind of what we have going on right now is normally the NBA and the overseas calendar kind of link up because it's their off seasons start right around the same time. But these overseas teams their seasons are done. They're already into the signing window for them, so they are already starting this process. Where you've got the NBA teams can't start anything for about 3-ish more weeks. Right at the beginning of August is when they can start negotiations. So what we've seen is a couple guys who are going to be pending NBA free agents already agreed to contracts overseas. So there were a couple smaller ones, a couple guys who were on two-way contracts. So Cam Reynolds was one of them that agreed overseas. I'm struggling to come up with the other guy. I will come up with it in just a second. But the two bigger names that I think people, James Nunnally was the other guy. I apologize to James Nunnally there. But those two guys have agreed overseas. But the two bigger names that I think people will recognize the names on, you mentioned Matthew Dellavedova, longtime NBA player. Sounds like he's going to head back to Australia and play professionally over there. He missed a bunch of this season. He had a concussion, which was kind of scary, as the amount of time he missed with that. But also Cleveland had guards. Cleveland not really looking to win. They're probably at the point of, thank you for your service here, Matthew Dellavedova. Good luck kind of going back home to close out the career there. Also, remember the Australian season ends early enough with the NBA back on their regular calendar that if he wanted to come back, that could be something that you could see happen if a team was really wanting a veteran point guard for the playoff run or something like that. And then the other guy, Nicolo Melli, who only spent a couple years over in the NBA with New Orleans and then get traded to Dallas this season, had the rep of a stretch big and somebody who was going to really come in and maybe kind of really compliment Zion Williamson. It didn't really happen the way I think the Pelicans had hoped for. Then he didn't do much at all with the Mavericks. He is going to go back home and play in Italy next year, so he is signed to return to Italy. So we're going to see a handful more of these over the next probably couple weeks before the NBA is ready to get their stuff cranked up, where guys are going to look at it and say, hey, yeah, if I can get more money overseas, I'm just going to jump on it and grab it now and get moving that direction versus hanging in here for maybe a minimum contract, a camp invite, those kind of things in the NBA, because I think these guys are playing it smart. You can make pretty good money overseas now.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's becoming more and more of an option for players if things aren't working out in the NBA, or if sometimes guys would just rather go and play at home if they have the opportunity to do that. So yeah, it is becoming a bigger thing here. Let's get into some of these draft night trades, though. A story popped up coming from Zach Harper of The Athletic, saying that we could be seeing the Pelicans making a move at 10 and that they're looking for a win now piece. They're looking for some veteran help there. And I thought this is interesting. We've already heard about a lot of teams that might consider making moves. Like the Cavs are heavily rumored to be trying to move up, right, to get to the number 1 pick. We've heard about Houston. Now we've got the Pelicans considering moving out of the draft or maybe down in the draft in order to land some help right now. I guess let's start with the Pelicans, though. What are your thoughts on that in terms of like Zion putting them into this kind of win now mode already, to where they feel like they need to part with a draft pick so that they can find somebody that can help them win right now? Let's not forget there was the story a few weeks ago about Zion's family maybe not being so thrilled with New Orleans.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think one, it's awesome that Zion has been this good already, right? That he is that good that you can really look at and say, all right, yeah, we don't want to waste time. We were talking a little bit before we started the show about how Luka is in the same boat, right? Luka is already so good. You don't want to waste any of those years. You want to really build on those. We've seen teams do this in the past with young players who are already this good. I think the Pelicans tried to shortcut it before Zion even played a game. Right. They went out that first year and went out and signed a bunch of guys. They made trades. Now, part of it was the Anthony Davis trade, right? We knew that was coming. But then it was like, all right, we got some pretty good players back in that trade that are ready to play right now. But then they went out, they got Redick, they signed Derek Favors, they signed Nicolo Melli that year, oddly enough. And then the hope was, all right, we're going to add those guys. Zion will come in. We'll be a playoff team right away in year one. And that didn't work out. They whether we be injury related or they just weren't quite ready for that. They didn't make it. And then this past year, they kind of doubled down, right? It was, all right, we got to trade Jrue Holiday. Or I guess not, we have to, but we're going to trade Jrue Holiday. Beyond the monster return as far as picks went, they were happy to take on a couple vets and Steven Adams and Eric Bledsoe versus saying, hey, OKC's involved here, but why let's not do these other parts of this trade, just ship Bledsoe there, and we're not going to do Adams. They were happy to take him on, and then they gave Adams the extension on top of that. And now what you've got with this team is this team really is in a position where they do kind of have to start to win, because you're a little bit stuck roster wise with what you've got. You've got Adams on the books for $17 million next year. Bledsoe at 18.1 million. Then you've got Brandon Ingram in the second year of his max extension at 29.5 million. Then Zion at 10.7 million, and you're kind of already at the cap. You're not going to have a ton of flexibility this year. You've got next year Adams on the books. You got Zion in the fourth year of his rookie scale. So it makes sense to me why they would be looking at saying, all right, we don't really need to add another young player at 10. And 10 seems to be, I know we started the show by saying we're just kind of getting into our draft prep. 10 seems to me about the point where you're kind of maybe looking at project kind of guys who might be a couple years out. Yeah, so I think what you're seeing at that point is you don't really need a guy like that. If your goal is, all right, we got to win and we got to keep Zion happy here, because in the end, the Pelicans can pay him more, and if they're winning, a lot of things will change about how unhappy he may or may not actually be there in New Orleans. If you're winning and you can pay him the most, that'll keep him home there. They won't lose him. But if you're not winning, then that starts to become, all right, well, what do we do here? Is he going to demand that trade while he's on the rookie scale so that he can still get that designated rookie extension from somebody if he really wants that and qualifies for it and those kind of things? That's where it starts to get really, really interesting for the Pelicans.
I just think it's interesting that here we are. You look at Luka, you look at Zion. Both have only been in the league for a few seasons, and already those franchises are starting to feel the pressure. Right? I mean, Luka's going to sign that max extension almost certainly, right? Yeah. But still, they're starting to feel that pressure. They're starting to hear that rumbling like, hey, you better get something done here. Otherwise, we could have some issues later on. Now, look, most guys aren't going to turn down the max extension when they're coming off of their rookie contract. They're just not going to do it, right? You're not going to take that kind of a risk. But still, this is an interesting thing. We talk about the player empowerment era and all of that. I can't think of a time, or at least it hasn't happened very often, where we've seen a player this young or this new into the league putting that kind of pressure on a franchise to win right now. And it's not all the player. Like you said, the Pelicans went out and made moves to win right now thinking, hey, we can really get this thing jump started. Sometimes that can turn out to be a mistake, though, when you rush things a little bit too quickly and you miss out on gathering some other assets that you can use to move forward with. And then by the time your star kind of has their legs under them, then you're really ready to make that leap. Zion is ready to go right now, though. So I understand why they would do this. Yeah. I'm curious to see what the return might look like for them or what the goal is. And I know this is a little rant here, but let me finish with this. You look at what the Phoenix Suns just did. Took a young team, added one veteran player, happened to be a point guard in Chris Paul. And, of course, you add another piece in Jay Crowder as well. But you add in a couple of veterans, and next thing you know, some injuries happen along the way, and NBA Finals. Right? Here they are. They're up 2-0 right now. Could be on the verge of winning an NBA championship. I have to wonder if the Pelicans are looking at that and saying, maybe we rush this a little bit, but look at what the Suns just did. This could be us if we make the right moves this offseason and we add the right piece. Not saying 10's going to get you a star, but it's got to be a thought in their mind.
Yeah, I agree with you. And the good thing for them is they've got two guys who are pending restricted free agents in Lonzo Ball and Josh Hart, who are going to have interest around the league. So those could be guys you could trade that could actually do something in a sign and trade as far as bringing you back, helpful pieces. Neither one of those guys is going to bring you back like a monster return of two great players or anything like that. But they could bring you back, nice rotation players that could fit, maybe a little bit better with what you're looking for there. And then Bledsoe's contract is a little weird, right? 18.1. Of course, no one would really want to pay him that this season. He's just not worth that kind of money. But 19.4 next year, but only 3.9 of it's guaranteed. So that's a number you can really handle very easily. So that could be something where you could do that 18 million to go get you something good, where that could really start to matter. Same thing with Adams. If you could figure out a way to do that. That's why I kind of wonder, do you pair 10 with Bledsoe or Adams, or Bledsoe and Adams, to go kind of chasing another star to bring in there? Or really, he would kind of like you mentioned, Chris Paul became the guy to kind of put the Suns over the top. Can you go find your Chris Paul that kind of pushes you over the top with, Brandon Ingram kind of playing the Booker role and Zion kind of playing the Ayton role? of a big and a wing, and go get yourself that guard that can really get you organized, control things, rebalance your roster a little with a bunch of role players. I think that's possible. I just don't know who that guy is. That's where who would that be? If you want to go down that path, I mean, that's just but that's what David Griffin's facing. He's got to kind of identify and figure that out.
I mean, just as we're talking through this, I think that would be, to me, screaming for the Kyle Lowry situation where you go and try to get yourself involved in those discussions and see if you can get him there. But, it's not even just the Pelicans that are looking to make. I mean, you look up and down the board. I mean, look, we've heard rumors about Detroit taking offers for number 1. You look at Houston at number 2, Toronto at number 4. I don't think Orlando's probably going to trade those picks, but they're sitting there. OKC, same thing. They probably hang on to them. Sacramento, but you've got a number of teams that are ready and willing to move these picks if the right deal comes along. I do want to stop in here, though, at number 2 with Houston. What are they thinking? I mean, we've heard they really want Cade Cunningham. They want to get him. That's the rumor that's out there, but they know they can't get up to 1 because of the price they'd have to pay to get there. Do they just stay at 2, or do they see it maybe as there's a tier break after 1? There's a clear 1, and then there's maybe, I don't know, on their board 3, 4 guys maybe that are all in that same mix, and they might be willing to trade back a little bit. I'm really curious to see what Houston does, especially coming off of the heels of the James Harden trade, which I don't feel like they handled all that well.
Yeah, the Harden trade, the picks they got from the Nets are TBD. I think the ones that are right. The ones that are down the line, I think, will be really good with those picks from the Nets, because unless you really think Durant, Harden, and Irving are going to be awesome when they're in their late 30s. I mean, probably not, right? Just history tells us, and they probably won't all stay together and all those things. The initial picks, they're not going to be very good. We know that. The next, couple years, they're not swapping with them this year, and then, it's just not going to be good. So I think if you're the Rockets, different from the Pistons, right? I don't think the Pistons are in a place where they would want to trade 1 to go add a whole bunch of picks, because I think the Pistons already have a bunch of young talent, right? They drafted 3 guys in the first round last year: Killian Hayes, Saddiq Bey, and Isaiah Stewart. They've got some other young talent on that roster, and Hamidou Diallo is a guy they went out and got before. So I think for them, it doesn't make sense to add a whole bunch of young players. But if you look at the Rockets, as far as really kind of young guys, they don't have a ton of young talent because they weren't set up to do this. This is really year 1 of their full rebuild, because last year they were trying to be competitive and it just didn't work out. But their truly young talent is Kevin Porter Jr. Nice player. I like Kevin Porter Jr. quite a bit. I'm glad he's got things together there in Houston. And then Kenyon Martin Jr. Those are kind of it for their young players, because, Jae'Sean Tate was a rookie last year, but Jae'Sean Tate is going to be 26 at the start of next season. So he's not old by any means. No. And he signed to a fantastic value contract for Houston. So he's clearly not going anywhere, but they're not flush with young talent. So I could see them, if OKC, let's say, really wanted to move up and said, hey, we'll give you 6, 16, and 18, and 2 more future first to get up to number 2, because they really want Jalen Green. I'm just throwing his name out there. Then I could see Houston saying, yeah, that's good, because we need to add an influx of really young talent. That's our goal here. And then if you could pull it off with OKC and say, hey, do that, but we also take back Eric Gordon's contract. Yeah. Then that's even better for Houston, right? If that's the direction they wanted to go, or something along those lines.
So they would get,
it's probably
6, 16, 18, another first plus. Well, I know we're just spitballing, but that's the basic idea, right? Move back, split up the number 2 pick into a bunch of other assets,
into a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
In the reason why I say OKC can do it more than anybody else, because they could trade all those picks and then still be like, look, we still have 4,000 other picks. We still have the entirety of the 2027 draft. We're sitting on this gold mine anyway. What's a few more? It's kind of like the old joke of, the guy who, lights $100 bills on fire because he's never going to notice it anyway, right? It's kind of where OKC is with draft picks if they want to overwhelm a team. But if they're going to do that, it would have to be because they really love Jalen Green or Evan Mobley or Jalen Suggs, somebody they know is not going to get to them at 6.
Yeah, I mean, look, draft picks for OKC are like bullets in Rambo's machine gun. They just never run out, right? I mean, they've got so many they can go and make a move like that, and it would make some sense for Houston. So we'll see how that all plays up. But I mean, I just love that it feels like there is so much uncertainty heading into this draft. There's so many teams that are not locked into anything and are willing and totally open to discuss moving their pick, moving back in the draft, moving out of the draft, trying to do things to move up. I think it's going to be a very exciting draft night because of all this. Now, hopefully, knock on wood, I'm not jinxing things here, and then it turns out to just be a sort of a dud in terms of deals or anything like that. But it does feel like we are set up for quite a bit of action involving this draft and picks on the move.
Yeah, we also have 2 teams that are in the top 7, Toronto and Golden State, who don't seem like they are really overly married to picking in those spots because they are in win now mode, right? For them, it's about for Toronto, let's put the stink of last year where the only team that didn't play a home game all last year and it was just such a mess. For them, I'm going to hammer on this. They're the only team that hasn't been home by the time next season starts in a year and a half. Because they went to the bubble and then spent, the year in Tampa, playing out of Tampa, Florida for the year. So I'm more than any other team, I'm writing off what happened with the Raptors this past year. It's just everything that could go wrong went wrong. And there was never even that bounce of like, hey, we've got the home fans behind us, because they never really got there. Tampa fans did well to adopt them, but it didn't, that was just, circumstance for a year. But and then the Warriors, we know the Warriors, I mean, it's been made very clear by multiple different reporters that they're shopping their picks, they're shopping Wiseman, they're doing everything they can to add veteran talent to try and push them right back to title contention. And I don't think that they're all that far off if they can make a couple really good moves. Steph showed last year he's still got plenty left. They'll get Clay back. I think if they are really a good team, you'll get a different Draymond just enough where he can go with that. So yeah, I think that's where we're gonna start seeing some movement out of those teams. You got, like we said, the other teams that are looking to rebuild. Hey, we're open for business and we'll take on money, and all their stuff. So yeah, I think the potential for movement at the top of this draft is a lot different than it has been. But on the flip side, you have 4. I think it's 4, maybe 5, because I'm really starting to really like Scotty Barnes. Yeah. And we'll get into it more as we talk draft stuff. But those 4 or 5 guys at the top of that draft class, you could even convince me maybe 6 if you really like Jonathan Kuminga. It's going to be hard to get teams to move off those guys. Yeah, because they're really, really good players. So it's not like a real flat draft or anything, but behind Cunningham and Green, who have kind of separated themselves as 1-2, I think, for most people, myself included. And then I've got Mobley and Suggs, and then I've got Barnes, and then I've got Kuminga. Those are kind of my initial slottings for those guys. But I do think it's that could slow the trades at the top of the draft just a little, because it's hard to pass up on one of those guys by trading out of the pick and then watching them go on to be a star.
Sure. Yeah. If you're trading back, say from, I don't know, just throw numbers out there, from 2 to 14 or whatever it is that you're trading back to, or say 2 to 7 and 14, you're missing out on that group, right? You're missing out on those guys. So that's the struggle. But I do think it's going to be a really interesting draft night, and I do think we're going to see quite a bit of movement. And again, right now the NBA finals are going on, so everything's kind of hush hush at the moment. I think once the finals ends, we're going to start hearing. It's going to be that kind of the dam is going to burst, and we're going to start hearing about a lot of different things that are being discussed around the NBA. Talks are happening right now, and it's going to be a very, very exciting off season. Keith, I think that about sums it all up for all of this draft trade talk. Any final words here before we call it an evening?
No, a little bit of a quieter day, which that's okay. It gives us a chance, like we said, to get caught up on some stuff. But yeah, I guess thank you guys for all the feedback in the comments. I know I
Yes.
made the joke about be nice, but we are reading them. We really appreciate a lot of the feedback. Appreciate some of the topics ideas you guys are throwing at us. We will do some shows. I know some people have asked for explainers on different things, so
Yeah.
we'll dedicate a show to how do you become hard capped. What does that mean when you're hard capped? We'll do a whole show like that for the people who want that stuff. Because trust me, I can talk that stuff all day. I can, Trevor, you can wind me up. Go get yourself a sandwich, put your feet up, and I'll go.
It's just
Even
like
talk
Boston
even more than I
Celtics Day.
usually do. That's it, man. Yeah, that's it. I can go all day on those things. So, but I know people are asking for that, so we will do some of that here as well for you guys. So just right now, we're just trying to make sure we don't miss out on news-worthy stuff and the things that are kind of breaking around the league. But yeah, absolutely, we're super excited, guys. Thank you so much for all your support already.
100%. We absolutely appreciate it. All right, everybody. Make sure you do subscribe right here to the NBA Front Office YouTube channel. We'd appreciate it if you would like this video as well. And of course, don't forget to turn on those notifications. Till next time, see ya and stay safe.